And a lot of the questions and a lot of those things came out in our discussion so far this afternoon. And one was, when the permits are permitted, why does it just all of a sudden happen and 2 days later it moves? Why couldn't it be something that's long term? And you guys answered that question real well, and that's why I asked them the 5-day rule out and how that all works. And sometimes folks think that there should be a much longer process, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever. And because the elements and different things change, I can understand. I thought that was a good question to bring up, and so I'm glad you answered it the way you did, so that we can get that information out to folks, so they know. It's usually within a small time frame, unless there's some issues, whether it be inclement weather or whatever, and we need to extend that from there or whatever. It's usually a 5-day process. Wayne, you have a question?
Well, I'll just make a statement, and that is that we appreciate the professionalism that everybody is utilizing in moving these large roads through Boston. I don't think there's anybody here that would say, hey, we like them coming through. If we had our druthers, we'd say, you know what, don't do it. Find another way. We really don't want them coming through Boston. But we also understand that we have no way that we can keep that from happening. And it appears right now that it's more of an inconvenience than anything else. And I'm referring to this one that's going to Great Falls. There's some ecological issues with the ones going up to Tar Sand, which we're not interested in really addressing because that's not the point. But the point is that thanks for doing what you guys are doing. Alan, thanks for your professionalism. And Chief, you guys are doing a great job too. It's got to happen. Make it happen without a problem. We prefer not to have it. It is what it is, right?
We'll make it short and painless.
We'll make it short
and painless.
Well, I'm a city.
One other follow-up. We received a transportation plan previously, but there's been an update, so maybe you can tell how the roads are going to move from the port up through Coeur d'Alene, so the public can know that it's not going to be just one stop.
Right. I had actually bring the crew out to just confirm. I wanted to get everybody on the same page at the time. I'm the project manager, and I make a lot of decisions. So I bring my crew up, and as a group, we decided to change some parking spots, nightly parking spots. We've got 2 turnarounds, actually, as we leave Port Wilma. We come into Lewiston at 128. We go to Highway 12, on to Highway 12, and to avoid the overpass that goes onto 95, we go up past and we get on westbound on 12. There's a big median there. We park there. We swap our trucks around. This trailer doesn't know if it's going forwards or backwards. We can turn the trucks around and go the opposite direction. So we swap the trucks around and we come up 95. At 95, we avoid another overpass. At 195, we take that ramp, we go around, and we come back on the 95. At that point, we've decided that time is going to be of the essence as far as getting into Moscow. So we decided to stop there at the scale point where we can stage for the next night of going in through Moscow at that point. Then we can schedule a lot easier. We know we can make it through, and we can dictate the time that we're going to leave and make sure we can get through on Mr. Duke's, the time that he would like us to be in. After that, we go up to the rest area at the, is it 372? 372. And we'll stop there for the night. And then we'll go from there to the scales at the 4-lane just before the casino. After that, we'll go into Coeur d'Alene, up Lincoln Street. We'll make a right, get onto I-90. We'll ramp and run overpass to avoid the overpass. We'll take exit 15, get on to cross over Sherman, go down Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive, where at 5.5 miles, which is the end, we'll go underneath the overpass onto a temporary on-ramp that's being scrutinized as far as, getting everything taken care of as far as right now. But, I mean, if everything went well, we would get on to that I-90 there, cross over to, we would stop there for another night. And then we would go from there to Wallace. And then from Wallace, we would go to State on into Montana. So, yes, sir.
So you would not be coming to Moscow from the Port of Wilmington? You would be coming to Moscow from the top of Lewiston Hill?
Correct.
Darrell, did you get the other thing?
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure that everybody knew that he's using the word rest area as a colloquial statement. It's not actually the rest area. It's a turnout on the far side of Skyline Drive, which is actually a half mile over. Turnout on the left, he'll be using. He won't be using the rest area. We don't permit any of those of our loads to use the rest area. Well, you said it.
Tom, you got something you want to say here? I'm not gonna say you're the most senior fellow here, but. Well, other questions from the panel? July, I think it was, I very much appreciate your conversation. It was very professional and well in depth from all aspects. Unless somebody has a,
Did anybody want to see the PowerPoint?
well, we've got time, folks. You want to present it?
How about 40 minutes for public comment?
How long have you got?
Verbal public comment.
Go ahead and run it.
I've seen plenty of PowerPoints.
It's a good wrap up, summary.
I dare extend the gong show.
How about 40 minutes for verbal public comment?
Yeah.
Because you, as that gentleman over there said, he received our comments at 3 p.m. You received our comments at 1 p.m. How many of those people around the table had the chance to review our comments before they sat at that table? Do you know that?
Ma'am, hang on, we're gonna watch this presentation that Bill's put together real quick, and then I'll address that.
Welcome to Maryland.
Okay, the first slide shows essentially the typical, or the total route. So as Chip said, it starts out at the Port of Wilmot, just to the west of Lewiston. It'll come up Lewiston Grade, come through Moscow, continue up 95 to Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene, it'll go on to I-90, heading east, up over the top of the divide there, drop down into Missoula, and then continue on to the Calumet Refinery at Great Falls. This is an overview again of what it is that's being shipped. Again, starting in Port of Wilmot, Chip already mentioned that this is a piece of equipment that the Calumet Refinery is going to implement. It'll be used to create low sulfur diesel to meet the EPA clean air standards. Essentially, that low sulfur diesel removes a lot of particulates and sulfur oxide compounds from the fuel as it's being burned. This particular load is essentially a tube, 3 pieces of a tube. There are no hazardous waste chemicals associated with it. It's just a very heavy stainless steel lined piece of iron that is a significant load. As we said, there's going to be 3 loads, 3 to 4 weeks apart. As Chip said, 1 load will go up. The carriage, all of the carrier assembly will be taken back to Port of Wilmot. It'll be built up again around the 2nd and 3rd loads as those move up. The average size of these loads, as we said, 440 feet long, 441 feet long, sorry, 27 feet wide and 16 feet tall. As Chip said, 76 axles total. Some of those are on the 4 trucks, 2 on each end of the load. And unfortunately, this one, those 3 sections are the smallest pieces that they can break this system down into. The loads, the 3 loads will vary from 1.55 to 1.61 million pounds. It's a little difficult to see. I think you have some diagrams though. This shows you the plan view and side view of the trailers that are being discussed. On the plan view at the top, you'll see on both ends there's 2 semi trucks that will be pulling and pushing this load. The trailer length itself is just over 267 feet. The piece of equipment that's being transported is that darker gray piece right in the very middle of that load. You can see that that piece is held by a frame. That frame is resting on two trailers, and those are the ones that Chip has been talking about that have the articulated wheel assist assemblies that allow that to have a number of different degrees of freedom to move that trailer around and avoid some of the obstacles. Chip also mentioned that the hydraulics on those wheels can allow that load to be lifted or lowered. What was it, Chip? A foot or so?
The trailer can go up and down 20 inches. The half boxes, which are on the end of the main beams, can go up 4 feet.
So these pieces right here can go up and down 4
Correct.
feet.
Does that bend in the middle at all?
No, there's a pivot point here and a pivot point there. This is a solid frame.
I'm curious, how long is that pivot point from one end to the other end?
159 feet.
Okay.
And then you'll see the schematic, you can't see the numbers, but the numbers that were discussed earlier, that the 43,000 pounds, that's what are loaded here on each of these numbers, and that's on each of these axles. Yes, sir.
So there are no wheels under the load itself, it's all supported on the beam?
Correct.
That's how we can get it as low as we can.
So it's floating in air?
Yeah, there's an overhead suspension system that has two 10-inch wide, 3/4 inch thick bands that go around that whole load, and they're held up by big Williams rods. And very stout system. You can set it clear down on the ground, or you can bring it up as high as 4.5 feet off the ground.
So you don't know what you do now.
What keeps all these axles steering in the same direction?
It's got a link system, so it's got steering bars that go from back to the front, and it's concentrated in front, and it's concentrated in back, and the truck can steer it from the front, or the operator that's on the trailer can bypass it, and he can take over steering, which is a redundant system. So we've got a backup for the steering. So yeah, it's just tracking rods. It's all mechanical.
And then you've got essentially two trailers, it's hauling this.
Correct.
How do you keep the rear trailer tracking with the front trailer?
There's a steersman on it. That keeps it level and steers.
I'm curious, where's that?
The steersman is, well, there's a cab that goes on it right in front of the truck, on back a little bit, right there, and then there's a steersman on the front, and there are two little cabs.
This is an end view of the load showing the maximum width here, just a little over 27 feet, maximum height 16 feet, 3/4 inches, which, well, the other width there, the wheelbase width is just a little over 20 feet. So as Chip has indicated, as this load moves down the road, if it needs to move off to a side and there's a guardrail or something there, that this can be lifted up above the guardrail and moved over a bit farther to allow for additional space on the other side of the trailer for vehicles to pass by. This is not the load, but something similar. You'll see, again, this particular one has a trailer here, a trailer back behind, and then a piece of equipment that's being held up by
It's a generator.
this generator. The route, we've spoken about this, north of US 95 through Moscow towards Coeur d'Alene. Nighttime moves, that's still being negotiated as far as what time that's going to occur. Because of the ability of this truck or this trailer to move, there'll be no ground moving construction, so no additional construction on the sides of the road. No utilities will have to be moved, either overhead or along the route. We spoke a little bit earlier about how the pressures of these loads are going to be transmitted through the subgrade, and this one, our engineers in my company calculated, again, that the Mammoth vehicle is going to exert about 8.9 pounds per square inch. A normal truck exerts about 6.9, and the road design, maximum road design of this area is 10.2 pounds per square inch. We talked a little bit about the prism earlier, how the weight per inch is distributed. This is a cartoon, for a better word, that shows, and as Mr. Lamar was saying earlier, if you have these two prisms that overlap, you do have an increase in pressure in those areas. However, it's still relatively minor compared to the overall pressure of the speed exerted plant. Safety concerns, we spoke about the traffic control plans. Speed, anticipated speed, although we've talked upwards of 20, 25 miles an hour on the state stretches within town, most likely going to be on the order of 5 to 15 miles an hour. It'll be a rolling road closure. Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, we requested them to keep it under 10.
Yeah.
Moscow, 330.
Yeah.
The rolling road closures, again, this is because this is going to be moving through town. You won't have to close long stretches of roads to eliminate service on those areas. This will be rolling through town, and so at any one point, it'll only be shut down for maybe 15 minutes at the most. Emergency services coordination, as was discussed earlier, communications in place where EMS services will be able to have priority. So whenever a fire truck or an ambulance or some other emergency vehicle needs to get by, that will be communicated and the road will be moved to the side to allow that priority service to be brought. This is just showing a schematic of the route through town. This is down at the south end of town, Sweet Avenue, and then moving through town as South Main Street moves into Washington. And in the north end of town, and we know that we want to make sure that we miss the landmark there. Popular landmark in town, we don't want to hit that. But as Chip said, these have the ability to move. This particular load is, again, not the same type. This one is just a large tank that's being moved, but similar the trailers. You'll see the forward trailer here, backward trailer here. This load is actually being moved through a Central American community that has town square. The roads here are about 12 feet wide, but this load is being negotiated around a center square and being able to move around that with no problem. Here you see how each of these wheel assemblies are articulated and can be moved at different angles to move around that area. And this is an aerial view showing the same thing, where you can see these wheels back to the back are articulated, moving this way. Yes.
Those are the same amount of axles and stuff
You know,
on this load chip.
It's the same frame, it's the same